enjoy. I'm going to call this special meeting of the Mayor and Council to order. I will call the roll. I am here, Mike Watson. I'm the mayor. The town clerk is here as well. And we'll call the roll for the council, since I can't see the rest, if any other staff are online. Council member from Ward 1.
Present.
Ward 2.
Here.
Ward 3.
Present.
Ward 4.
Present.
Ward 5. Ward 6. Okay, the recording just came on, so I'll just recap that the council members from Ward 1, 2, 3, and 4 are present, and the mayor is present, having 5 elected officials present. We have a quorum sufficient to conduct business, and the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank you all for joining us this evening. This is a special meeting of the Mayor and Council to hear public input on the development plan for Cheverly Hill. Again, briefly, this property is located just east of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway and just south of Landover Road, Route 202. The property is not currently in the corporate boundaries of the town of Cheverly, but the town of Cheverly does wrap around it on 3 sides, you might say. What we're going to do this evening is hear from the development team for, I hope, approximately 10 minutes or so. We can be a little bit flexible with that because I know there's a lot of material to cover. And then we will welcome resident input for up to 3 minutes. Please plan to give that, if you're in the room, to give your resident input at the podium and state your name and the ward you live in, and you will have 3 minutes for that. Council, at this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Mr. Picari and the rest of the development team to begin their presentation.
Let me go ahead and share. All right, thank you very much for having us here today. My name is Teddy Swift with Urban Atlantic. Urban Atlantic is one of the co-developers of the Cheverly Hill site alongside Home Team 5. We have Brad Frome, Justin Ross, Chuck Picari, and Trey Proctor here with us from Home Team 5. All of us available to answer any questions the council may have. We're here to talk about where we stand as it pertains to the preliminary plan of subdivision at Cheverly Hill. Of course, the preliminary plan of subdivision is the first important entitlement step within Park and Planning's entitlement process for any site within the county. I want to make clear what it is and what it is not. First off, the preliminary plan of subdivision is not a final plan.
Sorry, Teddy, just one quick interruption.
Yes.
First, I want to recognize that the Cheverly Town Administrator, Delane Galloway, has arrived, but also that Council Member Garces from Ward 5 is online, and I'd like to ask the staff if we can promote him to panelist. Thank you, Teddy.
No, of course. So what the preliminary plan of subdivision is and is not. First off, it is a enshrinement of density and an adequate public facilities test. And that is really the primary goal of the preliminary plan, which is to confirm that there is no part of the development that's going to put an unnecessary stress or an undue stress on the public facilities around the site. Or elsewhere within the county, and if there is mitigation included within the plan. And it also includes a review of the zoning and the density proposed at the site. What it's not is final engineering permits. It's not an architectural review. The preliminary plan itself is just lines on a page. It doesn't even have the buildings cited on those lines. So while I know it's taken a very long time to get here, there has been significant sort of conceptual level engineering work and a lot of back and forth with the county and Park and Planning. There is still a long way to go, at which point, there will be multiple opportunities to comment on specifics such as architectural designs, such as streetscape design. This is not the only bite at the apple, so to speak. We will do what we can to answer the questions you may have, but some of it, frankly, just may not have been worked out at this point because it is still just a preliminary plan of subdivision. To give just a quick overview of the site and what is being proposed, it's an existing 45-acre former hospital complex, of course. The zoning is CGO, Commercial General Office. All of the proposed uses that we have included in the preliminary plan fit within that zoning, so it is a by right development in the sense that there is no rezoning effort required. The total density is 1,350 residential units. About 1,000 of those are multifamily rental units. About 50 of those are multifamily condo units, and 160 are townhome units. Right now, the plan has 70,000 square feet of commercial office space. That is in the current Prince George's County Health Center, which we expect them to leave the site to pick up operations in their new Greenbelt facility sometime in 2026, though that might be 2027 by now. And then 40,000 or so square feet of retail is what's being proposed, as well as a 79-key hotel, limited service hotel. There are two waivers that are attached to our preliminary plan of subdivision request. One is a 300-foot lot depth setback off of the BW Parkway. This is a county code requirement where anytime a lot abuts a highway or a parkway, that lot needs to be at least 300 feet in depth. We have lots that are less than 300 feet, though there is a distinction at the BW Parkway here where the right-of-way itself is about 600 feet, so our lot line is already 300 feet off of the road itself. We are also proposing very select waivers on the requirements of a 10-foot public utility easement alongside every private lot. There are certain areas on the site where either from a constructability standpoint or just a site layout, preservation of existing treed areas and steep slopes. We're not proposing that because those areas would need to be graded and provided for public utilities to be placed in them. In terms of where we are in the process, we have been accepted by Park and Planning for the preliminary plan. So that means they have deemed our application to be fit enough to go and be referred out to different agencies, and the town of Cheverly for general public comment. As of right now, we have gone through the SDRC process, which is an initial review process where primarily county agencies provide their feedback on the entire application. And the application includes not just the preliminary plan, it includes traffic impact study, conceptual stormwater engineering, bike and ped impact study. There's a lot that goes into it. I have a lot of those files available if there's any specific questions on it. So we've collected.
Let me just interrupt you for a second to note for the record that Councilmember Fry has joined us as well. So all of the town's elected officials are present. Go ahead.
Okay. We have been accepted. We've gone through the SDRC review process. We have received the preliminary comments from the county agencies. At this point, those comments require a resubmittal. So we are working on our resubmittal package that we intend to resubmit at the end of next week. At which point, if the county reviews and signs off on it, and it doesn't have to fully answer every single question that has been put out, a lot of the comments that they have made are comments for further consideration when we get to the next stage of the entitlement process. But once we get through, if the county doesn't think we need to add any more information, we will be on a glide path towards a planning board meeting, which will be approximately 40 days after we last submit new information. That planning board meeting is an opportunity for staff to make their park and planning staff to provide their own report and comments, to make their recommendations, for the planning board to ask questions of us. And up to that point, they will take feedback. Importantly, 40 days prior to that planning board meeting, we cannot provide any new information. So if we make our submittal and a planning board date, right now a planning board date is set for April 23rd. My sense is that might move a little. It was originally set for April 2nd. It's set for April 23rd. It may move, but in any respect, whenever it gets set, 40 days prior to that, we cannot provide any new information or else it starts the clock again. The last thing that I just want to touch on quickly before I get to two new components of the project, or at least two new pieces of information, is the detailed site plan process. That is the next stage of the entitlement process. That is where we'll go through this exact same process essentially, and the town planning board will have the opportunity to comment on plan specifics, architecture, etc. of the different vertical components. The two things that I wanted to present on quickly, because I know it has come up both within comments that we've received from the town and town residents, and also we've touched on it a lot, frankly, in past conversations, is traffic calming throughout the site. I am happy to make this exhibit public and share it around, but it shows different traffic calming devices that we are proposing around the site. I know the potential impact of traffic is a major concern of the residents. What we have said all along is we are going to, through our design, discourage bad behavior and encourage good behavior. And a lot of that is through these traffic calming devices. So, it starts with at the Lockwood and Inwood connections that are being proposed. I know they're being reviewed by the town of Cheverly, of mini circles that provide natural traffic calming. It's sort of like a mini roundabout. And then stop signs, visible crosses, raised crosswalks for pedestrians, and then stamped concrete where there are a lot of crosswalks. That's really where the focus is, and again, I'm happy to make this available for folks to review. It is not a specific exhibit as part of the preliminary plan because it's outside of that scope, but we wanted to go ahead and develop it anyways. And then the last piece are two specific proposals for our bike and ped impact statement. So essentially that is a requirement to provide off-site bike and ped improvements in the community that we're developing in. And here we are proposing a dedicated bike lane and shared use path down, this is Pepsi Place, to the southeast of the site. You can see our site here up to the north. Down Pepsi Place to the proposed improvements with the grant money that the town has been awarded at Lydell Road and Kenilworth Avenue. So it's meant to function in concert. We want the design to happen in concert with the improvements that will be proposed at Lydell and Kenilworth. This is important at this time because that one of the comments that we received during STRC is, since this is a town road within the town of Cheverly's jurisdiction, they want to know that you agree with our proposed improvements in concept. That essentially you are willing to work with us to figure out a design of Pepsi Place that works, and you agree with us spending that money off-site in this location. That is it for broad updates. Again, I have multiple plans up, different parts of the preliminary plan. Happy to talk through any piece of it.
Excellent. Does anybody else want to speak? All good? Okay, council, why don't we go around the council before we go to public input? Councilmember Lecloahec.
You had mentioned of the 1,350 units, you had a breakdown of rentals, condos, townhomes. Could you just give us those numbers again?
Yeah, it is roughly 1,000 rentals. Let me rephrase that. It's 950 market rate multifamily rentals, about 150 or so active adult seniors rentals, so targeted to the 55 plus community, 150, 160 or the 160, townhomes, for sale townhomes, and the remainder being condos, again targeted towards seniors, elevator served condos.
And of the 40,000 square foot commercial retail,
Yep.
do you have a sort of a number in mind as to how that divides up between establishments?
So we think that is between 8 to 12 different retailers, depending on the size of the retailers that we get. Likely to be certainly one coffee shop cafe, maybe 2 restaurants, 1 full service, 1 quick service, and then a neighborhood serving retail for the most part.
Okay, thank you.
Council? Councilmember Tanzi.
Thank you for that. The Cheverly Health Center is the 70,000 square feet of office.
That's right.
What's the vision for that?
So we had previously been talking to and continue to have conversations with bringing medical office back to the site. Ideally a primary care physician. We've had productive conversations to that in that front, though of course that's hard to get done right now. So I don't want to overpromise that. But those are the types of conversations that we've been having. There is a potential that gets converted to a smaller portion of health services or some other commercial use on the ground floor. And then we are looking at, it's very preliminary, but we're looking at potentially seniors affordable on the upper floors there.
And this is on the east side of, is it Mercy or Hospital, whatever the main drag is called?
East side of Hospital Drive, that's right.
Yeah, okay. So the existing structure.
The existing structure.
Got it. Vice Mayor.
I feel like I ask this question every time you come, but given the uncertainty about when the actual planning board meeting is, does that impact the date by which our comment is due, and what is that date that our comment is due?
So Park and Planning should be communicating that directly to you. We've been trying to help to coordinate that process. I would say comments can be received at any point, and that's Brad. Comments can be received at any point, though if you want us to have the opportunity to respond and potentially amend the plan as it stands before it goes to planning board, that's really just as soon as possible. Again, they will write in their staff report if there's comments that we need to reflect moving forward. They might give us a conditional approval that says, okay, this is okay by now, for now, as long as you make these amendments and when you get to detailed site plan.
I think Mr. Galloway had a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you. In my meeting today with Park and Planning, they indicated to me that comments are due on March 10th.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Did you have any more, Vice Mayor? You're good. Councilmember Wade.
Yeah, March 10th, that's around the corner, so that's very concerning to my Ward 1 residents. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate the partnership again. Can you just talk to some of my residents about the noise and environmental aspects and how you deal with that and continue to speak with that? Because I know we talked before about
Yep.
some concerns regarding that, especially with Ward 1 being right next to it.
For sure. Yeah, no, so I appreciate you bringing those concerns to us earlier. What we did then was put the air quality monitors out there. We will continue that program. Pretty soon here, the demolition is going to stop on site, and it'll reach a stabilized condition until new work starts again. When new work starts again, we are happy to put air quality control monitors, and then in terms of work hours, we'll work with the town council, and certainly under the county ordinance we'll be working, but if there's any concerns specifically there, we're happy to address those with our contractor.
And just to follow, thank you for that. And the follow-up is that the plan that you all have will be both ways coming in and out on Lockwood and on Inwood?
That is what we're proposing, yes.
Okay. And so Tremont, not Tremont, what's the, Jason, that's not something?
Pedestrian connection, which there
Pedestrian
is today.
connection on that, okay.
Yeah.
Can you speak to why those streets in particular?
Lockwood and Inwood.
Correct.
From a circulation standpoint, it works the best to not have two streets right next to each other, only 60 feet apart, or 100 feet apart, whatever it may be. And then also from a topographic standpoint, Jason, that pedestrian connection is right up a set of stairs. Those are the closest from a topographical standpoint.
Got it. All right. I yield back.
Okay, council, anything further? At this time? Okay, we'll do another round at the end. We should, while we're hearing resident input, think about how we're going to meet the March 10th deadline. So let's put our thinking caps on over the next hour and consider how we're going to get a written document done in time. Okay, thank you for that then. Okay, so if you're online, I think you're going to need to raise your hand given the format of the meeting, and then we will hopefully see your hand and promote you. In the room, of course, it's much easier. You can simply line up and approach the podium in the center and give your name and ward, and you have 3 minutes. You are the line currently.
This seems to be on my, yes, sounds like it is. I just have a few little questions.
Your name?
Yes, sorry, I do have a name. Sheila Solo, Ward 2. So the original concept plan showed freestanding bicycle pedestrian trails throughout the development. Will there in fact be any dedicated bike ped trails or only shared paths along roadways? I only have 4 or 5 questions, so I won't have to stop in between. Okay. Second question. All the bodies that have studied the plans have noted that parcel J is designated as open space. As you know, that parcel is occupied by 2 cell towers. What in fact is the status of those towers? I think you've answered this question. The plan submitted to SDRC stated that you have submitted, no, you haven't answered this question. The plan submitted to SDRC stated that you have submitted an environmental assessment. Can we see that, please? I think you mentioned that you have made the corrections and revisions requested by SDRC, and can we see those? Okay. And just the last substantive question. On the Pepsi Place trail, I think there were 3, is that right, options proposed, and I was just wondering which one does this represent, since you're asking the council to actually make an actual approval or disapproval of this. So I think we need to know which of the 3 is being represented there. And the question I had, and this is a procedural question, so when you say, Mr. Swift, that this is only the preliminary plan, and I understand that the other plans, the detailed site plans and so on, come later. So what does the county expect from the town's comments? They're not approving the plan. Are they simply saying, yes, this can go forth to the next steps? What is it they're actually asked to do here? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Salo. I see the team furiously taking notes, which is good. So I think, why don't we take a few comments, and then, once we get 20 or so minutes into the comments, the team can come back up and address whatever you want to address, and then we'll kind of keep it rolling like that. Does that work? Okay. I'm not seeing anyone online, so please.
All right. My name's Kate Abbott, and I'm from Ward 1. I actually live on Lockwood. She actually got a couple of mine, so I'm sorting through mine to see which ones are still open. So you proposed the bike lane along the Pepsi Road there. I was just wondering, would they also be sidewalks, dedicated sidewalks? Because that's one of the wonderful things about Cheverly is lots of sidewalks. You talked about the traffic impact statement. The only one I saw did not include Cheverly itself. It just included in and out of the development site. And I'm wondering if it's ever been done. Also, you talked about stormwater and the other environmental things that she said. Where can these studies be seen so we can take a look at what the results were? Okay. All right, you're talking about two-way access on Lockwood and Inwood. Really long time ago, we talked about if it was to happen, would it be considered to do one-way access? And has anybody done that? My other questions are more for the Cheverly Council, which is doing the cost-benefit study for having that increased. You know, how likely is it that we will be annexing that space? And what is it going to cost us? What is the benefit of it? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. Those are very well heard. I think it's very likely that the town will be annexing the project in the not too distant future. Okay, again, folks online, I believe you have to use the raise hand function on Zoom in order for us to see you and then promote you. Please.
Okay. Leila Riazi, Ward 1. Just a few things for clarity. All the figures that were given in the beginning as far as what units will be rental, what units will be owned, if you would please update that on the website, because those are often the questions that people have, and that creates continuous confusion. Also, when we're talking about the retail, if you could give some indication when people are talking, some people are very knowledgeable about retail square footage, others are not. So for people trying to figure out within the square footage what you reference, it may include this or this, something that gives an idea of this is an average size that we're looking at for a coffee shop, this is an average size for a retail store, the constant grocery question. And I will continue to encourage to look at some micro level groceries. We have an idea of what a Trader Joe's runs and what a Fresh Market runs, but there are also micro versions of those that have proven very successful in urban environments. So to be exploring that, because that's what I constantly hear from my neighbors is, what are we getting out of this development? And the fear is, or the feeling is that the retail is being so curtailed that there isn't an advantage to having the pass-throughs to this area or even annexing this area, because our community isn't finding things that are desirable for the current Cheverly residents to expand and have this as part of Cheverly. So as much as you can do to speak to that. The other thing is not seeing recreation space for what we're anticipating to be children as part of this development, and to have greater clarity about how recreation space for youth, kids and youth are is being supported within the space would be very welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. I would also love to hear the team address both the community spaces that are envisioned, because I think there's at least partially a good story to tell there. So I would love to hear that addressed, as well as the retail, because I do agree that the retail will be a big reason, at least initially, until we actually form relationships with these new residents. The retail will be the reasons that we all down here want to go up there. Okay, thank you for that. Nuts?
Do I still have time within my 3 minutes? I had one more thing to add. Okay.
Sure.
It would just be, there's been the conversation about a homeowners association, and I know that that's going to factor as to whether or not this area is going to be annexed, but really to limit as much as possible the range of a homeowners association so that the community is directly looking to their council member and to community for engagement, because homeowners association pull people internally rather than connecting with the broader community. Thank you.
Thank you for that point. Still not seeing anyone online. Let's stay in the room then. Please.
Thanks. Matthew Will from Ward 1. You have to I'll apologize because I'm dealing with kids at the same time, so my thoughts are halfway there. My first question is just to state there probably isn't a good argument to open roads apart from annexation. The economic argument, and I hear you say we're planning to annex, but the economic argument of businesses is not true, and people have continued to make it. It's not going to make or break the businesses there. That is not based on science. It's based on interviews with local businesses that are our friends. So let's not think about that. Let's think about if and with or without annexation. I would like to know about traffic calming measures all the way throughout, not just right by my house. So that point that we're talking about that's my yard. And so I do care about traffic calming there. But also, if you go all the way down Inwood, and that hill that's there, we have to consider traffic calming there. Just 3 days ago, someone drove by and they said, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house here. How's the traffic on this hill, especially when there's snow? Should I say, it's okay right now, it's kind of dicey, but soon you should not buy. The other things that I would say is just to state, we always seem to be saying the road when we see the plan, it looks like the roads are a done deal. And I'd like to know if that's true, because that seems to me, and I understand it's the developer presenting it, but it feels that way often, and it's like it's a foregone conclusion. When I thought we were still deciding that, and I just want to hear that from the council, if that's a done deal. I think those are all my halfway baked ideas because I was also managing kids in the back. So, thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Hope your new son is doing well.
So I know that that when Teddy comes back up, he'll address the traffic calming concepts that he's worked into the plan inside the site. It's not just at the at Inwood and Lockwood. So there are those there. I don't know if they're adequate, but it's worth looking at them and then seeing what else we can do.
In Cheverly?
No, these were on the site.
I'm talking more about
I got you. So like Tremont.
Tremont, Inwood, like that whole
Right.
traffic likely will go.
Actually, Tremont and Jason.
Okay, so we can't have comments that aren't in the microphone. But no, I got you. Okay, so I understand. So Teddy can't address those, but we can talk about those. I think to directly answer the question quickly about the roads, the town hasn't made a decision, and the town will need to make a decision affirmatively if the roads are to open. I mean, if the town doesn't make that decision, then the roads are not going to open. When we need to make that decision, I'm not 100% certain, but we can talk more about that tonight. It will certainly probably need to be sooner than later, but it has not been made yet. And then, I think it could be one of the things that we address in our response on March 9th at 10 p.m. Or not. I mean, we don't have to address the question directly, and it would remain unanswered. So, I mean, it kind of depends on how the council wants to proceed, or what items we decide we want to address in this particular written response, which will not be our final, let's say, input on the project. Why don't we quickly go back to the council, and then maybe we'll go back to the team, and then see if there's other comments? Well, let's go back to the council, then we'll go to Mr. Price, and then we'll go back to the team. Vice Mayor?
Just to clarify on that last point, my understanding was that we were waiting for the preliminary plan of subdivision to be submitted, and whether or not that had through roads based on our formal comment, is basically the decision of whether or not we think there should be through roads. Like, my understanding is that if we do not say no to through roads in our formal comment on the preliminary plan of subdivision, then the through roads will go through. But that might be wrong. Maybe I'm not understanding correctly.
Councilmember Wade.
I second that. I agree with the Vice Mayor. That was my understanding as well. And just to answer Mr. Will's question, no, a decision has not been made regarding that. I'm sorry that you feel that it's already decided regarding that, but no, a decision has not been made regarding that. But it truly was my understanding too that this would be decided before, once we respond for the preliminary plan of subdivision for that as well. And in the sense that that date is literally, 5 days from now, that we need to make sure that we get on our horses and get that done. That's unfortunate that that's the case, because I thought we had more time regarding that. I yield back.
Okay, anyone else on council? Yeah, I mean, I would have to check with the town attorney. My assumption is that it's always our street. It's our street and it's always our street. And so, we don't have to meet a planning board deadline to address our own sovereignty over our street, for lack of a better term. Go ahead.
Yeah, as in, like, the through streets would be built, we can always close our side.
Oh, sure.
But my understanding
Okay.
was, like, for the preliminary plan of subdivision, that determines whether or not the streets are actually built on the other side to connect to Lockwood and Inwood.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but we can always close them. One of my questions is whether we can unilaterally decide to make those one-way on our side, which would then make them one-way on the other side as well.
Interesting.
Because if they're only one way over here, then,
Right, they're only one way.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, these developers, if y'all can just speak to, I've had a lot of suggestions that to maybe have one street going in, the other street going out. Can you speak to, have y'all thought about that? How can that affect the property itself? And has that been part of your plans? Something that y'all discuss as a whole. So always look at some forms of compromise or what's best for the property as a whole. So there's pros and cons to both sides. So has that been a possibility in your planning? And if I am correct that if we do not vote for opening up the streets by the 10th, that kind of nullifies what the developers submitted in the first place. Is that correct? Because their plan has the streets being open.
No, it doesn't nullify the PPS. I mean, that's for the site.
Okay. So it was an open-ended question. So then we technically can have, like the Vice Mayor said, have the streets open, but we can have it available to be open, but also available to be closed as well. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Mr. Price, did you want to come in before we go back to the team? And then after we hear from the team for a couple minutes, we'll go to Renata online.
Fred Price, Ward 4. 3 C's: communication, coordination, and cooperation. Something's broke. For them to give you 5 days to make a presentation, I'm concerned about that. We need to strengthen the 3 C's. Thank you.
Can't argue with that. Thank you, sir. Okay, does the team want to come up and address, address what you'd like to address? And then maybe 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll go to Renata.
Perfect. First off, on the streets, we did look at one way. It functions that. We've designed it for 2 ways, and just to give both sides flexibility. And we have said from the very start, if the town wants to restrict it to one way, put no through traffic, whatever it may be, or you can't put signage up where you can't use these roads during certain times, like rush hour, so it promotes retail traffic versus cut-through traffic. All on board with that, 100%. The decision certainly does not need to be made in the next 5 days. I think we will show it this way it is shown this way for our preliminary plan. Like you mentioned, if the streets don't connect and you don't take the curb down on your side of the road, that is absolutely the town's decision. We want to just stay in close communication with you on that. Honestly, we probably wouldn't build the streets to the scope that we are building them right now if it is not the town's intent to open them up. But absolutely does not need to be made in the next 5 days. Certainly not this team's intent to put you under the gun like this. On the bike and ped impact study, in terms of alternatives that we presented earlier, there are two that Park and Planning asked us to take a look at with you all. I will provide both to you. They're iterations on the same exact thing. In terms of the traffic impact study and which intersections were studied, intersections at Inwood and Tremont and Lockwood and Tremont were both included in the traffic impact study. Those results are there. We had a dedicated meeting to review the traffic impact study. This was probably a year and a half ago now, but we printed out one-pagers and handed them out. I'm happy to dig that up from the files and make that available for people to look at rather than having to thumb through a rather dense entire traffic impact study. What is Cheverly reviewing in terms of providing comment to Park and Planning? It's the mandatory referral process. As I understand it, Park and Planning takes, things like the street is the perfect example of what they are going to take into account when they, write up their staff report. And they'll take all of any comments that you have into account when they write up the staff report. It's not a stamp, it's not a green stamp that needs to be made or anything like that. On the recreation space, that is one of the comments that we actually received on SDRC. We are providing recreation space. They asked us to call out where those spaces are on site and list some examples of what we will be providing. We don't have those exactly worked out in terms of, we're going to have a 3,000 square foot playground or a 1,500 square foot playground, but we'll show playground here. And so that exhibit will be available for folks to review. In terms of off-street trails and the conversation around community associations, there will be a community association across the entire site. There needs to be, because there is going to be privately owned, privately maintained land that covers the entire property. If the town wants to have a conversation, should annexation go through, about some dedication of open space, there's certain open space, absolutely, we are happy to have that conversation. But there's budgetary, the community itself will have an operating budget to throw on concerts, to put on, to bring, bring musical acts, to have movie nights, things like that. And that cost needs to be distributed across all of the property owners on the site, and that's what the community association will do. The off-street trails will either be dedicated to a public entity or set aside through covenants or easement for the restrictions of use for those off-street trails. We will update the website with units. That is a very good comment. In terms of size of retail, just rules of thumb, a full-service restaurant can be much larger. Can be 10,000 square feet, but we're not going to build a Cheesecake Factory here. It's more likely to be 3,500 square feet, somewhere in that range. Normal retailer is about 1,500 to 2,000 square feet. Coffee shop might be 2,500 or 3,000 square feet. So they're not, they run pretty efficiently. And then on the micro level grocers front, we did a retail market study that did identify a potential need for a 2,000 square foot, 3,000 square foot, very urban grocer. We will make that outreach. That's very much part of the plan. That's a huge win to the project. That's a win to us. So we're going to make that outreach. It won't be for the want of trying if we're unable to get the grocer. Yeah, please.
Yeah, just to add a couple other thoughts too, and just to put the amount of retail into perspective, I'm sure everybody here is familiar with Arts District Hyattsville, the UA project on Route 1. That has about 33,000 square feet of retail. So just to kind of put that in perspective, this would be slightly larger. And as Teddy mentioned, they also have, kind of the format of the urban grocer that he was alluding to in Yes Organic Market. You just a couple other points, because it's a theme as to where the preliminary plan of subdivision fits into the broad theme, the broad scheme of development, and then also how some of the municipalities' comments weave into that. As Teddy alluded to, the preliminary plan of subdivision is really a test of adequacy, right? You're testing the impacts to the surrounding area at a very preliminary basis, from stormwater, traffic, those are the big ones. And you kind of pyramid up from there. So you don't have architecture, obviously, in a preliminary plan of subdivision. You don't actually designate if something is for rental or ownership, because that's to be determined later at detailed site plan. Same kind of thing when we talk about the different iterations of the trail going down Pepsi Place. You identify how much money you're going to spend for what's called your BPIS, which is your bicycle pedestrian impact. And it's a formula. A lot of parking planning is formulatic based. So based on the number of units, based on your retail square footage, you have to provide a certain valuation of recreational amenities. Trail being the BPIS, satisfying the BPIS, the off-site transportation side of it, recreation space on-site, satisfying another formula. But a lot of this actually gets really nailed down with specificity when you get into detailed site plan, because then those units are actually, then you're actually building those units, those formulas come into play, and that's where you actually decide what elements are going to get built commensurate with that phase, and also what transportation improvements have to be delivered based on the amount of units and the amount of trips you're putting on the roadway. One thing just to be mindful of that we're talking about park and planning is, for them to designate something as a recreational space, it has to be limited access to residents, right? So take the community space, take the sledding hill. Unless we put up a fence and said this is only for residents, under some of the way they look at it, that wouldn't count as recreation space. Well, the sledding hill is a hill we're going to die on, right? I mean, that's got to be obviously open to the community. It should be considered as recreation space. But the last thing I want to say just about that pyramiding up of specificity is, and you see this in the staff report from Park and Planning, a lot of their comments are, when you get to detailed site plan, take this into account. Do this, do that, do this. So I'd say that to the town, there's an element of responding to what's in front of you, which again doesn't have as much detail. Another comment was made about stormwater. There's a 3-tiered stormwater approval process. We're in the first stage, which is conceptual, and it is just that, very conceptual. As you progress through and you get to detailed site plan, you get to far more technical details as far as how that stormwater actually functions. And I say that to say, so my advice to the town is, there's commenting on what's in front of you at the preliminary plan of subdivision, and there's also looking prospectively at what's to come and kind of putting your comments on the record as far as what you want to see when the detailed site plans come down the pike.
Thank you for that. Can you quickly address the sidewalks? I think that was probably to you anyway, Teddy. The sidewalk on Pepsi.
Yes, the alternatives do include a separate sidewalk to bike trail. And then also on the comment regarding the cell towers and the parcel J, the cell towers are actually on it's parcel L. I'm looking at the plan right now. Parcel J is where the water tower is. And the cell towers are proposed to be demoed. We are working with the county right now with their emergency services equipment that are on the.
All right, thank you for that. Let us now go to Renata online, and then anyone else online, feel free to raise your hand, and then we will go back in the room.
Yeah, just a couple questions. Is there anything in the budget for speed cameras and placement of any such cameras in the area? And also, who is going to police that area? And is that dependent on whether or not the place gets annexed?
All right, and your full name and your ward, for the record?
Renata Reinschissel, Ward 4.
All right, thank you for those. Okay, we'll work those questions into the mix. Are there other comments or questions from residents at this time? Not seeing any online. We can stay in the room or go back to the room. Well, let's let Mark.
I'm not going to have a second 3 minutes. I just want to point out what hasn't been answered. So the environmental assessment that that was spoken of, where is it?
Okay, thank you. That is true, that it was not addressed. So we will get there in a few minutes. Please.
Okay. Hi, I'm Margaret McDonald, Ward 1 resident. So I just wanted to speak in support of a road connection. And I like the various options that have all been thrown out there, that we can make it one way, that it could be closed during rush hour to minimize the traffic impacts. I think that sort of connection emphasizes the community that we would want to bridge between this new development and Cheverly. I know that, the neighborhood around Spellman, theoretically you can walk to it or you can get there on foot, but it does not feel like a part of Cheverly. I remember talking to someone who lived over there, who went to Mass at St. Mary's of Landover Hills. He didn't go to St. Ambrose, even though it was like walking distance from his house, because it felt like it felt like a separate space to him. So I think we want to embrace a community between the two neighborhoods. I also wanted to ask, I know this has been discussed before, but just to get a general idea, we're talking very short term right now, time frames of, when the town gives input and so on. But I think it's in the order of years before there's actually someone living there or there's actually retail that's open. So what does that look like? 5 years, 15 years? Because I think that also may impact on the decision we make about the roads and how people feel about the roads. If they know that those roads aren't going to be there until, the connections aren't going to be there until their kids are in college or whatever. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Let us go to Councilmember Wade, who has a residence. No, you can come up. Councilmember Wade is going to read a residence question.
Yeah, the question is Cheverly Hill going to be all electric community, or will it be gas and electric? If all electric, will they be working with the utility company to bury cable, or will it be mixed above ground and overground poles? Any solar planned? Also, will it be its own grid or tied into the towns? Reason asking is that Cheverly Avenue divides the grid in town, and there has been times when one side was powered while the other side went dark.
All right, thank you. Your name, ward, and you have 3 minutes.
Mark Friesen, Ward 1. First, just wanted to say I appreciate all the work that's been going on the annexation and how it's been orderly and straightforward and well communicated. A question about the bike lanes, just because I can't quite visualize if we're talking about bike lanes that are part of the road just painted on, or if we're actually talking about physically separated, something that actually protects bike riders. And clearly there's control there down Pepsi Place, but how does that extend past that to Bladensburg, Waterfront, and will that, are we talking about the same things and more of a physical separation for a bike lane there? Had a bit of a question about, I know there's a kind of a phase 1 and phase 2 to the build. It seems like phase 1 is mostly the commercial stuff and some resident. Just curious as how much of the population that we're talking about would be in phase 1 versus phase 2. It seems like maybe phase 2 is a lot more of the residential, but so early on it would be much more business. Just curious what the breakdown is there. And then there was mention early on of Cheverly resident business owners and whether there would be some Cheverly resident starting businesses in those in that area. And I wonder if there's been any interest, if there's any thought or anybody in the community that has some interest there. Just out of curiosity, if there's been any interest shown. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you for those. Very good. Let us stay with resident input for a few more minutes before we go back to the team. Go ahead.
Quick follow-up question, just because I wasn't quite sure where this landed. So do I understand that in the next 5 days...
Your name and...
Oh, sorry.
Again, it's okay.
Matt Will, Ward 1, with Mr. Wade over here. So what I understand, just for clarification on this, in the next 5 days, a decision, we need to make some sort of decision about roads, or we're not clear about that. And the decision would be, I just want to make sure this is, I'm just wanting to understand this. If it's possible we have to make a decision before we know the outcome of annexation in relation to the roads. It doesn't mean we have to open the roads, but they would be built off that decision, and then we'd have the power to close or something. Is that basically where we're at with the process?
So we're going to write some kind of response in the next few days. That is going to be well before annexation is finalized. So in that sense, yes, we won't know that the property is part of the town before we write that. That will likely address that writing may or may not address the roads. I guess we need to talk about that, but it certainly wouldn't be a dispositive position that the town is taking on whether the roads are open or not.
One quick reminder, Matt Will again, the survey we did, 75% of residents didn't think the roads should be opened if not annexed, just as a point of reminder for y'all. Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's...
I know. Please, just...
Now, he hasn't had a chance to answer that question yet.
I think we need to know definitely, what does September 10th really mean?
March.
When I went... Pardon?
March 10th.
I mean March
Which was
10th.
September 10th.
Sorry, March 10th. What does that really imply? When I went to find out the answer to the same question, when do comments have to be in? What I read on the website was they have to be in by noon of the day before the hearing. That's a completely different animal. So can we find out by today, by the time we leave here?
Okay, so
what the actual deadline is?
We'll take a few more comments, and then I'll ask Mr. Galloway to elaborate about on his conversation today. Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to add another question for the developers. I'm interested in the difference between sort of open space and recreational space, and of the open space or the designated green space in the development, will all of that be public and open to residents from outside of the actual development? Are there going to be things, amenities that are outdoors that would only be sort of accessible to folks who lived on Cheverly Hill itself, is my question.
Okay, did you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a statement. I know we have a 5-day window, but, I believe that we shouldn't kick the can down the road. So if it is the 10th that we do make a decision regarding the opening and closing those roads. So we're not just leaving our residents hanging out there. That's the biggest question in the room, that and annexation. So it's unfortunate that if this is the final window that we have that. That's Mr. Price, I know he left, but he said it was very clear regarding that. But we owe it to our residents, even this pressure on us, to make a decision, because that has been one of the main things that we discussed. So I just want to put that out there. I yield back.
All right, Mr. Galloway, do you want to elaborate, or are you able to elaborate?
Sure. Just in the communication today with the reviewer, it was indicated to me that March the 10th was the deadline to provide comment for this phase.
And what happens if someone sends in a comment on March 11th? She won't read them?
They will still be accepted, but my understanding is March 10th was the deadline.
Okay. Okay. Why don't we go, you've already been here once, so we're going to limit you to 1 minute. And then,
I'll do
and
my
then we'll go
best.
back to the team. Go ahead.
I'll do my best. I'm not sure I will be able to fit in with 1 minute, and I understand that others have come up as well. So when I wanted to say that I very much support connection, street connection, and very much support that the town support the street connection so that you get the best design possible. The other thing is just because communities need to be connected, not separated. I would like to learn more of what can be done to set up or prepare the units that are currently slated to be rental units, because markets change, for the possibility of becoming owner units in the future. And I'm sure there are key things that need to be in place for that would be beneficial for that. Once again, in conversations with community, if you can please, this is to the developers, promote the work that you're doing to have a connection with Prince George's Community College Culinary School, and what that will bring to the site. I can't finish in a minute. So, and then also annexation, how annexation will or won't affect recreation or open space. For example, can the town, if there is open space, create or work with the developers for a playground that is open access to everyone? Because any playground that's only restricted to the people on Cheverly Hill will actually create more conflict in community rather than cohesion in community. And the last thing that I have here is just really some developments, if you'll see, the backside of the development is what faces the nearby community separated by a fence. That's not the community cohesion that I want. I want what the developers are offering, which is it's a small green space of shift, but also the idea that when you're driving in, you're facing community rather than facing the backside, the trash, that type of thing of community. So thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else want to speak at this time, or shall we go back to the team? I'm not seeing anyone online. I will say I have a lot of pause about this community association idea. Okay, so we're going to need to talk that through, because that does something to the bottom of my stomach that's not positive. And it feels like a separate kind of mini town within a town. I'm sure there's a way around this, and there's, because recognizing that we already have, for example, we have in the town Cheverly Station Apartments, which is privately owned. They do a lot of their private services, but they're still part of the town. They don't collect fees. Well, they all have one owner, so it is different, but that's more of the model that I want to go to than like collecting separate fees and doing separate stuff for a subset of the town. Mr. Fromm, would you like the podium? I mean, anyone on the team, maybe, since no one's got their hand up right now, is happy to address anything you'd like, but go ahead.
He's obviously the expert in the arcane world of Brad Fromm. I'm not. Oh, am I on? Yeah. Okay. I don't know what ward I live in University Park, so I certainly don't know what ward I'm in right now. So originally we were supposed to get a planning board April 2nd. We pushed that back to April 23rd to give us more time to respond to their voluminous comments. I wouldn't be surprised if that March 10th date is tethered to that original hearing date. So basically how it works is they publish a staff report 2 weeks before the hearing. They want to start compiling that staff report 1 week before that. If you take April 2nd and you rewind 2 weeks and then 1 week, that's probably thereabouts March 10th. So I think they're looking at that old date. So we think what that deadline probably is April 2nd. And the person Elaine talked to, I'm sure, didn't get the memo that we agreed to push back our date. Though I just talked in the hallway, if we'll collectively talk to Park and Planning tomorrow, and if they push back on that April 2nd date, we'll be in your guys' corner to say that gives us plenty of time. Let's wait till April 2nd. So.
All right, thank you for that. I will just add that, go ahead, Mr. Gallo.
You know, just if I will, initially, that was the roundabout date that I advised the mayor and council on. But today we were told different, so thank you so much, Mr. Fromm.
Yeah, well, I appreciate both of you running that down. I think, look, if our worst scenario comes true, we'll have to have probably an emergency meeting this weekend or early next week. I think if this is true and we have until April 2nd, well, gosh, that's only 3.5 weeks. So, we have a town meeting a week from now and a work session 2 weeks after that. If that's not enough, we'll have an additional meeting in there as well. Vice Mayor, did you have your hand up?
There's been a lot of dates thrown around, so forgive me. There was a distinction made earlier tonight in terms of this deadline between when we provide comment that you all can sort of react to versus when we provide comment and it only goes to the county, and I might have completely misunderstood that, but I was wondering how that math figures in this discussion of what the deadline actually is.
Yeah, go ahead, Teddy, and then feel free to address anything else you guys would like.
For sure. So to that point, we cannot provide, it's not that we can't react to it, don't need to react to it at some point, but we cannot provide any new information 40 days prior to the planning board. That's not us, that is Park and Planning's rules. So if the comments come in April 2nd, there's no new information. We either need to move the planning board date if there are comments that require amendments to the preliminary plan, so major comments. Otherwise, they'll be included in the staff report with conditions on them that we will need to address, as Brad mentioned, in that next phase as you work up the pyramid. All right, let's work through the comments. I think I got them all, though I may have missed one or two. The environmental assessment, I believe that is in reference to the natural resource inventory. I think so. If it's not, I'm happy to connect to my civil engineer. I'm sorry, but I think that's what it is. The speed cameras, placement of cameras and who is policing. Speed cameras, we do not currently have anything in the budget for speed cameras, and who is policing, I think that will very much depend on whether the site gets annexed or not, though that's not my decision to make. Electric versus gas, my expectation as of right now is it's going to be all electric on site. And overhead versus below ground, there's a number of overhead electric lines that are running through the community as is, sort of on the perimeter. I would expect those to remain overhead. I'm not sure some of them may even be sneakily on the National Park Service right-of-way. Any new service will be underground. The solar planned, we do plan on solar. My company has put in a lot of solar over the last couple of years, and we have signed we have a letter of interest with Community Solar to provide solar back into the community to low-income residents. So we do have space planned on different buildings on site there. Timing of project, we are expecting to get under construction in 2027, and that's the latter half of 2027. That would mean the first open is likely to be either the very end of 2028 or 2029. That will be both residential and commercial. As of right now, the Village Green area, the bed tower renovation, the townhomes in between the Village Green and the town of Cheverly, that is all included in phase one. So that's a mix of 15,000 square feet of retail or so, 350 or so multifamily residential units, and 70 townhomes. That can change. None of that is being set in stone during the preliminary plan, but that is what our intended phase one as of right now is. We are happy to hear from any Cheverly local residents who want to open up a business or look for space. We've put in flex space, live work units, things like that in our other communities where it is essentially outward facing amenity space that can be used for like podcast studio or yoga studio or anything. It can be flexible space that if someone doesn't want to take on the burden of having a a lease that they have to pay every single month and just wants to pay hourly or what, happy to make space for that too. I think that is a fantastic use. On the residential versus owner multifamily question, this, as Brad mentioned earlier, right now there's no designation within the preliminary plan as of if the multifamily buildings are going to be condo or going to be residential. The current market suggests rental. The current market suggests rental. Once they are built, because of the very strict condo requirements and laws and warranties and all the rest, they are very likely to stay rental if they were planned to be rental. But up until the day we put a shovel in the ground and get financing, they can switch between rental and ownership. Community association clarification, I hear you. It really is the fact that this is just, there is going to be shared public space that is going to need to be in someone's ownership. And if it's not the town of Cheverly's ownership, it will need to be a community association rather than be the burden of one of the owners on site. Yep. None of the recreational facilities that we are planning open to the public outside. I mean, there's going to be courtyards within the apartment buildings. That will be for the use of the apartment residents. But outside of the building footprints, those are all meant to be public spaces. I was about to put my head through the wall with the program planning reviewer last week when they suggested that they would be just for the residents of our community, because that doesn't make any sense to all of your point. These should be, these should be public spaces. So that is very much our intent. We're going to be fighting very hard for that we don't have to designate anything as just for the use of 70 townhomes rather than the use of both the town of Cheverly and the entire site. Backside of development, as of right now, yes, we are being very thoughtful in terms of what that face looks like from the town of Cheverly. And it is the front doors of townhomes, it's green space, then the front doors of townhomes, and then really the front door, it's the village green, and it's a very prominent facade, it's the main road. So we expect that not to be an issue. And then Prince George's County Culinary School, I appreciate that being brought up. We're very excited. We've been talking to them about opening up a couple of stalls within the residential or the retail space, for young entrepreneurs involved in the culinary school at Prince George's County Community College to operate and have sort of a low risk way of figuring out how to operate and run a business. What's it?
Phase 1 timeline.
Thank you. I talked through timing, but phase 1 versus phase 2 residential breakout. It's really going to be, we're going to bite this thing in chunks. So it's not going to be 2 phases, it's likely to be 4 or 5 phases. You don't want to deliver 2 apartment buildings at the same time that just cannibalize each other. So each of the apartment buildings will be constructed 18 months, in sequence, 18 months after each other, essentially. And it is, I went through in brief, but it's largely residential, the first phase.
Excellent, and I do love I think it's very good how you have lined up the condos directly to the west of the existing Cheverly homes to maximize the integration. Okay, I'm sorry, were you done? You're good?
I think so.
Is there anybody in the public who would like to comment before we go back to hear one last time from the council? And I will say, before I forget, council, we've never really gotten our ducks in a row, and I'll take the blame for this, about if we're asking for anything up there as far as town of Cheverly space. I mean, anything from a police substation to a museum, 4,000 square feet for a museum to, we've bantied about a few ideas, but we haven't. Anyway, so that's on us. One of our assignments, in addition to figuring out everything else, is whether we're asking for any indoor space, I guess I'll call it up there. All right, I'll stop there. Seeing no hands in the room and seeing no hands online. Okay, let's go back to the council. Vice Mayor, you're up.
Yeah. So just to clarify, and I appreciate you addressing this. So is there a scenario where Cheverly has annexed Cheverly Hill, and all of the sort of recreational space and open space is essentially part of the town of Cheverly, and there isn't a community sort of association separate, or there's always going to be something?
I think that the Village Green, we would program it, we would have a vision for it, and the community association can work very closely. It can be a part of, there can be a embedded part of, the town council, but we would want to retain ownership of that and put on, the events there and have our owners fund into that to make sure it's being adequate. I mean, I think that's where we would stand, but I'd have to talk to my team.
Councilmember Wade, and then we'll just go down the row and see if anyone else has any comments, please.
Yeah, again, thank you all. I appreciate y'all coming here and continue to come out. I know a lot of times us Cheverly folks, well, rightfully so, we can ask a lot of questions, but that's the beauty of democracy and community engagement. I'm not sure if you question, but number one, are the townhomes going to be the first to be built, correct? Is that part?
They're part of the phase one, yeah.
And as well as some rental units?
Correct.
So the senior homes is later after that? Is that
as of right now, just because where they're located on the site, yep.
Are you able to project the cost of the townhomes? I know it's the market value, but you have a projected cost of that as well as the rent, a one-bedroom or two-bedroom rental unit as well. And will there be, control rent for
market rate?
It's like Section 8, housing for that as well. Affordable housing, yeah. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, so as of right now, the program is just market rate housing. We are looking at one building to be a seniors LIHTC building. That's for seniors earning 30, 50, 60% AMI, and that'll be 70 or 80 units. So a relatively small portion of the overall. As of right now, the rest is planned to be market rate. Urban Atlantic does about half of our work is affordable housing. We're very well versed in it, happy to do it, but that is what we've heard is desired, though things change. And then, can you remind me the start of it?
Projected, I know it's a couple years from now, the cost of the townhome.
Yeah, so on the townhomes, we will be selling finished lots to a nationally recognized builder. We haven't chosen that builder yet, but we were talking to the usual parties there. I don't have full insight. I'm not setting the price. If I were to guess, I would say somewhere around $550,000 to $600,000. And then on the rental, one bedrooms, $1,800, $1,850, somewhere in there. Two beds, $2,300, somewhere in there.
Thank you. Councilmember LeGloheck, please.
Well, looking at the time frame, I will just comment that 2031 will be Cheverly's 100th anniversary, and what a perfect place to put a wonderful museum and archives and establishment in Cheverly Hill than to promote Cheverly's 100th anniversary.
Centennial. Let's do it.
So World's Fair.
That's a wonderul idea.
Geodesic dome.
Brought forth by our mayor, so yes.
Sphere? Did you say sphere?
So, but yes, no, and I also wanted to compliment, is she still here, Margaret? Yes, for the idea of the street connections. I think that the idea of making a street connection is easier to make and restrict than to shut it down altogether and then say, oh, that was the wrong idea. So the idea of building the roads and then say, all right, because we have 5 years minimum to deal with this. And so after 5 years, we then, all right, let's take some of this down and let's let some traffic in and see how it goes. And if we don't like it, we can put the restriction back up. Or if the traffic is coming through okay, then maybe we try the other side and we say, okay, this is okay. We're going to, we did okay with this. We're going to let the traffic start flowing more, and then we look at the traffic flow and we deal with it accordingly. Thank you.
Councilmember Tanzi, anything? You're good? Councilmember Garces, did you have any? Well, if you, I believe you're a panelist, so you should be able to either raise your hand or simply interrupt us if you would like to say anything. Did you want to say anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I received a question about the townhomes and how big they are, like how wide are they? Are they all the same size? How many bedrooms?
Minimum 20-foot width, and that solves to about 2,400 or so square feet. It's 3-bedroom as the base design with an optional 4th bedroom or rec room on the ground floor.
So it's walk-in, it's not, the basement's not below, right?
There are going to be some areas where there's topo that requires sort of the garage to be below and then the first floor to be one level up. The other ones, it's going to be all at the same level.
All right, Council, anything else?
Can I say something?
Yes.
Thank you. This isn't a question exactly. I was just writing some notes about the Cheverly Health Center. I like the idea of the 15-minute city, or whatever that concept is called. And a lot of people travel pretty far to see specialists. So I'd love to know what we can do to attract specialists. I know people who go to physical therapy, go to occupational therapy. I'm sure there's lots of other stuff. But a lot of people go to Greenbelt. A lot of people go into Montgomery County, into the city. So making use of that space that's already designed for that type of work, I think would benefit everybody, both the new residents and the town of Cheverly. And since it's right off BW Parkway, you might even be catching people coming out of the city to see specialists. Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure I said that while the topic is open.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, if all hearts are clear, last word goes to Teddy then.
Just want to thank you very much for being here and allowing us to present. We're really excited about where we are. A lot of wood to chop left on this, a lot of work left to be done. Also want to shout out Ben Hobbs from the Redevelopment Authority. He is our public partner on the deal. They have been an absolutely fantastic partner throughout and took time on his busy Thursday night to be here with us.
Yes, and just a reminder to everybody, the RDA still owns all the land.
Yes.
The land is owned by your county government currently. So, all right, then that concludes this meeting. Council, we will be reconvening in 21 minutes for a closed session, and then we'll stay tuned, and then we will meet again. Next Thursday. Yes.
Can we just talk quickly about the two different scenarios depending on when our comment is due so we know what's going on? If the comment is due March 10th, what's the way forward? If the comment is not, what should we be doing?
Can I advise in the morning?
Sure.
Sure.
If I can advise in the morning after we get together, that would be great.
Okay.
But I think, yes, I think if it's due March 10th, we're going to meet the deadline, and that's going to require us to have an emergency public meeting. And if not, then we can probably sandwich or append another meeting to one of the 2 March scheduled meetings, the 12th and the 26th.
Great.
I hope that's true, but as you say, we need to plan for the contingency.
Yeah, great. And so it feels like either way, like this is the last couple of days for residents to have their say on the preliminary plan of subdivision.
Yes, I mean, that is a great final note. Please continue to be in touch early and often with your council member and with me directly.
Even if the date's pushed back, this will still be the last availability for that?
Well, there's no firm, so I think best case scenario, we're going to have to submit something in writing in March.
Right.
Yes, which is very soon. Today's the 5th. So we're just saying you need to be as a resident, you need to be in touch with your council member and the mayor sooner rather than later.
That's your shield.
Is that?
Okay.
No, I'm saying if it's the date was, the pushback date is what, April 2nd, right?
Yes.
Is that time to have another, you're saying it's not time to have another?
Oh, it's definitely time to have another meeting.
Yeah, community meeting, okay.
You are also encouraged to talk to your elected
I get
officials
that.
between meetings.
My residents definitely talk to me, so.
Yeah, no, that's right.
As
But
you see here.
We will.
And I love it.
I think to your point, we will definitely have another public meeting
Okay.
on this topic before we submit the written message, even if that message will need to be submitted in 4.5 days.
Yep.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.